Did you know that nearly 7% of adults in the United States are diagnosed with social anxiety disorder? That's right, 7%. That might not seem like a huge number, but that's around 15 million people. And guess what? Most of them never get help. They live their lives thinking their fear of social situations is just how things are. But what if we told you there's a scientific reason behind it? In today's video, we're diving deep into the brain and social anxiety to discover how your brain sometimes tricks you into feeling like everyone's watching and judging you, and what you can actually do about it. Let's be real. We've all had those awkward moments where you say something weird and replay it in your mind for the next 5 years. But social anxiety? That's a whole other level. Section 1. What is social anxiety? First things first, what exactly is social anxiety? We all feel nervous sometimes, especially in new or uncomfortable social settings, like meeting your partner's parents for the first time, or speaking in front of a crowd. But social anxiety goes way beyond that. It's this overwhelming fear that you'll embarrass yourself, or that people are constantly judging you. It can pop up in everyday situations, like giving a presentation, eating in public, or even just chatting with someone you don't know very well. And it's not just about feeling nervous. Social anxiety can cause physical symptoms like sweating, shaking, and a racing heart, making you want to avoid social interactions altogether. You know, like when you say "you too" after the waiter tells you to enjoy your meal, and then spend the rest of the day in a spiral of existential dread. Yeah, that's the vibe. Section 2. What's happening in your brain? So why does this happen? To understand social anxiety, we need to take a look at the brain, specifically the amygdala. The amygdala is this tiny almond-shaped structure in your brain that's responsible for processing emotions, particularly fear. In fact, it's your brain's danger detector, always on the lookout for anything that might harm you. When you have social anxiety, your amygdala goes into overdrive in social situations. It treats talking to your boss, attending a party, or even asking a question in class as if you were about to face a saber-toothed tiger. Your body prepares for danger. Your heart races. Your palms sweat, and suddenly you want to escape. Except instead of a saber-toothed tiger, it's just a room full of people making polite conversation. But tell that to your amygdala. Section 3. Neurological and psychological factors. But the amygdala isn't the only thing at play. Your brain is also really good at creating something called cognitive distortions. Fancy talk for irrational ways of thinking that make things seem way worse than they are. One of the most common cognitive distortions in social anxiety is mind reading. No, I don't mean you're suddenly Professor X from the X-Men. Mind reading is when you assume you know what other people are thinking, and it's almost always negative. For example, you say something dumb at a job interview. Your brain immediately goes, "Oh no, they think I'm an idiot. They probably hate me. I'll never get the job now. I should just move to a remote island and live out my days with a pet turtle." But in reality, maybe they didn't hear you. Or maybe they just don't have a sense of humor. Their loss, really. Another cognitive distortion is catastrophizing, expecting the worst possible outcome in every situation. Like if you trip in public, your brain jumps to, well, now everyone thinks I'm a klutz, and I'll be labeled as that person who can't walk for the rest of my life. Again, not true, but social anxiety loves to exaggerate everything. Section 4. The role of genetics and environment. Now let's talk about how social anxiety comes to be. It's not just your brain being dramatic for no reason. There's a mix of factors, both genetic and environmental. Research shows that if someone in your family has social anxiety, you're more likely to develop it too. It's partly about how your brain is wired, but it's also influenced by what you see growing up. If you had parents who were super anxious in social settings, or you faced criticism or bullying, that can increase your chances of developing social anxiety. On top of that, environmental factors, like traumatic experiences, stressful life events, or even growing up in a culture that emphasizes social performance, can play a huge role. It's a recipe for your brain to go, okay, time to feel awkward and terrified in every social situation. Section 5. How social anxiety affects your daily life. So what does this all mean for your daily life? Well, social anxiety can make it tough to do pretty normal things. You might avoid going to parties, dread meeting new people, or even feel panicked about something as simple as answering the phone. It's easy to fall into the trap of avoidance, where you try to dodge situations that make you uncomfortable. But here's the problem with that. The more you avoid these situations, the more you reinforce the idea that they're dangerous. Your brain starts to think, oh, we didn't die because we skipped that work meeting? Good call. Let's keep avoiding stuff. This creates a cycle where social anxiety grows stronger and more limiting over time. It can seriously affect your career, relationships, and general quality of life. Plus, constantly dodging social stuff means you miss out on free snacks at work events. And I'm sorry, but no anxiety should be strong enough to make you skip free food. Section 6. How to manage and overcome social anxiety. So, how do we deal with this sneaky social anxiety monster? Luckily, there are ways to manage it. And no, it doesn't involve becoming a hermit with that pet turtle. The key is to start rewiring your brain and challenging those negative thoughts. One of the most effective treatments for social anxiety is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This involves identifying your cognitive distortions, like mind reading or catastrophizing, and challenging them with more rational thoughts. For example, instead of thinking, everyone's staring at me because I'm awkward, you can challenge that with, actually, most people are too focused on themselves to even notice me. There are also exposure techniques where you gradually put yourself in social situations that make you anxious, starting small and working your way up. The goal is to prove to your brain that social situations aren't dangerous. And if someone does judge you for tripping or saying something weird, well, you're better off without that person in your life, honestly. Medication, like SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, can also be an option for some people. These meds help balance the chemicals in your brain that affect mood and anxiety. Section 7. Conclusion: your brain isn't the enemy. To sum it all up, social anxiety is basically your brain's way of trying to protect you, but it ends up going a little overboard. Like using a fire extinguisher to put out a candle. The amygdala freaks out. Cognitive distortions make everything seem worse. And suddenly, social situations feel like life or death scenarios. The good news? You can train your brain to chill out. Through therapy, gradual exposure, and sometimes medication, it's possible to rewire your brain's response to social situations and start living without that constant fear of judgment. Thanks for watching. What social situations make you the most anxious? Leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and get notified for more great videos from Brainwaves, where we dive into topics like anxiety, optical illusions, and more. See you next time.